Hello everyone, my name is Tanveer Syed. On YouTube I'm the Bengal Dragon. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe and bell notification buttons, as all your support really helps me remain motivated to making these type of videos on this channel. This was over 5 years in the making, as Fallout 4 came out in 2015 if I'm not mistaken, because I remember specifically getting a PS4 to play Fallout 4 when it came out, back when I was living in Washington, DC. So Fallout 4 overall, yes, it has its problems, its recurring quest lines, its annoying characters and whatnot. But overall, the game itself is actually very good. I mean, I'm actually having another playthrough of it because, you know, if you don't play it for a while, you sort of miss its idiosyncrasies. And also I'm showing how a simple feature, once again, like the VATS aided quest guide markers, helps me to actually go to certain points of interest or my quest objective. And such a simple thing, although it wasn't designed with visually impaired people in mind, it helped me play a game like Fallout 4 to such an extent. So this is just an example of intrinsic accessibility design. And obviously The Last of Us Part 2 took something from this as well. But this is just a playthrough. I thought, like, you know, it would be appropriate for this type of video, as I'm making a video about the story of Fallout 4. And by the way, the story of Fallout 4 is actually something very good. It's very, very interesting. And I've been a fan of this YouTuber called Oxhorn. And yes, I'm a subscriber. I comment on a lot of his videos, even to this day, a lot of his older videos. And he actually does something very good, which he probably doesn't realize this, but he actually does very detailed environmental storytelling. It's to the point where a lot of times I just have to listen to Oxhorn, and his descriptions are vivid enough for me to visualize a lot of things in great detail. So kudos to Oxhorn for that. I'm pretty sure he perhaps did not make it like this with a specific focus on visually impaired people, but that's one thing I found very, very helpful. And also, like, you know, he has a lot of fun with it. Like, you know, if you don't believe me, just watch the Silver Shroud episode that he made. Very interesting. But this is a response video to a much older video from Oxhorn, and he actually posed that for the Commonwealth, the Minutemen are the best hope. Now, I would like to refute this, and my suggestion is that the best ending for Fallout 4 is the Institute ending with the Minutemen left alive. And I've taken down, I believe it goes down to 13 points. So let us get to it. Number 1, this is very important to keep in mind. The only two factions that you can actually lead and become the leader of in terms of a decision-making role are the Minutemen and the Institute. In the uncut version of the game, I'm not talking about mods and restoring uncut content. No, I'm talking about a physical copy of the game that I play on my PS4 with just the regular updates provided by Bethesda, not any mods. If you are with the Brotherhood of Steel, you are still taking orders from Arthur Maxson, which means that you are bound by how Arthur Maxson sees the world and the goals of the Brotherhood of Steel. And when it comes to the Railroad, you are still taking orders from Desdemona. So you basically become their prized asset instead of their leader. This is very important. The second point, the Brotherhood of Steel is only concerned with hoarding technology, and more specifically, weaponizable technology. As Mr. House put it in Fallout New Vegas, the Brotherhood of Steel does not hoard technology from hospitals. No, they hoard technology that put people into hospitals. On top of that, and I am on par with Oxhorn on this one, the Brotherhood of Steel views the citizens of the Commonwealth as an expendable asset, not as their equals. The perfect example is when Procter Teagan gives you the quest to acquire crops, mostly by coercion, not by free will. And the attitude that Procter Teagan takes is that the farmers actually owe the Brotherhood of Steel a huge favor by liberating them from the Institute. So they ought to be grateful instead of complaining. Notice how the Brotherhood of Steel never actually sends out their emissaries or ambassadors to actually convey this message to the people of the Commonwealth. They just expect the people of the Commonwealth to blindly submit to the rule of the Brotherhood of Steel. So Arthur Maxson views himself as a king rather than a just leader. Number 3. Notice how the focus of the Brotherhood of Steel is mostly in weapons technology. It is barely in agriculture or medicine. Yes, there is a small quest where you can get blood samples and whatnot, but it's a very small part of what the Brotherhood of Steel does. They're mostly concerned with energy weapons, power armor, and other military-related technology. So letting the Brotherhood of Steel win would make the Commonwealth a military state. And we all know from history that military states are never good. Number 4, getting to the railroad. Now, I am pretty sure most of you would agree with me that the railroad is the worst faction of them all. Not only do they not care about the people of the Commonwealth as a priority, but they exist only due to the existence of Gen 3 synths, and their purpose is only their liberation. That is all. Acadia in Far Harbor has shown that Dima had a plan, and Gen 3 synths have a future after escaping, and they can coexist with factions, some of which even don't like them, like the citizens of Far Harbor and the children of Atom in the Nucleus. The railroad in the vanilla game in the Commonwealth has no such purpose. So the railroad are clearly the worst people to lead the Commonwealth. Number 5. So this only leaves 2 factions that are viable leaders of the Commonwealth: the Minutemen and the Institute. Number 6. Breaking down the Minutemen, and here's where my opposition with Oxhorn begins. The Minutemen are basically concerned with protecting civilians, and that is it. They don't have a plan on what to do after that, but all they are is a stabilizing force. And the Minutemen don't have an actual plan on how to further develop the Commonwealth. If world history has shown us anything, is that societies don't work properly without leaders. And this is even seen in Fallout 4. You go to Good Neighbor, everyone respects Hancock and his leadership and his rules. You go to Diamond City, you have the security guards who are there for protecting people, although they never protect you when triggermen fire at you, but they also follow a chain of command, and that comes from the mayor. You even see in the NCR, all of the military personnel have a leader and they have a structure, and they serve a greater purpose than simply just protecting people, because their entire structure has a bigger plan in terms of protecting people and development and progress. The Minutemen seem to be only a protection unit without any higher structure, and there's only one post available, that is general. At least the NCR has contingency plans. If, for example, the President Aaron Kimball dies or whatnot, they have contingency plans. Even Caesar's Legion has contingency plans. Although the game has shown that Legate Lanius would not be a good leader because he is only concerned with warfare and is not concerned with the logistics of running a nation. They have a contingency plan and they have a structure. The Minutemen are only concerned with protecting people and letting farmers and citizens do whatever they want. Essentially, they're a stabilizing anarchy force. And they run on charity. If world history has shown us anything, amongst the thing that I've just mentioned, another thing is that society does not work on charity. And this is why the Minutemen is a group that needs to exist within another group. They need to serve another function in terms of maintaining order for the system. Even let's say in Quincy, I'm pretty sure there was a mayor of Quincy and the Minutemen were its stabilizing force. So this is why the Minutemen, as you find it, not only are the weakest faction, but also are the most leaderless faction, if you will. Because as general of the Minutemen, all you can do is run supply lines and whatnot. Like hypothetically, let's say if you could dedicate people to research and development, that infrastructure is not there. Like you have no way to actually discover better means of agriculture or better economics. Number 7. Another perfect example of this is the Commonwealth Provisional Government. And before that, let me just get to this point. If the Minutemen were to take exclusive control, then all you would see is the same thing over and over again. And that thing is stagnation. Now let me get to the Commonwealth Provisional Government. Notice how the Minutemen did not send a representative. This is clear proof that the Minutemen do not see themselves in a leadership role, but only in a protectorate role. And despite what Oxhorn says, and I really oppose his British Parliament argument, because the British Parliament are arguing about legislation within a nation. They are not talking about separating from the UK and becoming another nation, or they're not individual counties that are looking to form the UK. So that is similar to if, let's say, the council of Diamond City, and yes, there is a council because if you kill Mayor McDonough, the council takes over. It's like if the council had an argument about certain policies. So the Commonwealth Provisional Government is a clear example of why there is very strong leadership that is needed. And the Minutemen clearly do not see themselves in this position, because back in the day, even the Minutemen were much stronger than it is right now when you had General Becker or Ezra Hollis or something like that. You cannot have just stagnation and expect things to go the same way over and over again. In all this time, the NCR grew from a village, Shady Sands, and it became a nation, a small nation. Caesar's Legion started with one tribe and united 86 tribes, becoming its nation. Even the Pit, as horrible as that may be, became somewhat of a nation because of the leadership of Lord Asher. So this clearly shows that leadership is very much needed to actually make things better. And the Minutemen are not the leadership type. Number 8. This only leaves the Institute. Their strongest asset is that they have the technical know-how and the scientific knowledge to actually improve the situation for citizens of the Commonwealth. And they tried. They sent representatives to the Commonwealth Provisional Government, but they lost hope because the Commonwealth Provisional Government was going nowhere and they were just stagnating over and over and over again. Like I mentioned with the NCR and Caesar's Legion and even the Brotherhood of Steel, strong factions form when you have good leaders. And in all this time, only the Commonwealth was not able to unite despite having a provisional government. This tells you that they did not have a strong leader. And this is why someone from, let's say, the Institute who has experience of the Commonwealth needs to actually run the show. And the broken mask incident, just to say, is probably a Gen 3 synth malfunctioning. This is because the CPG was already falling apart. So for a scientific community that actually focuses on efficiency, it would be very inefficient to actually send an assassin to the Commonwealth Provisional Government because they were already falling apart. So if something is inevitable, there's no point in sending a Gen 3 synth to actually make that a reality because the reality was already inevitable. It is very inefficient. And just to add to that, the reason why the Institute was so frustrated was because of the lack of stability, because they know an unstable government cannot function and take decisive action when it is needed. And arguments in Parliament is not a sign of instability. It is just opposing ideas, feeling themselves out or evaluating themselves out, if you will, to reach a consensus. Number 9, this brings me to the biggest problem of the Institute as we find it. The Institute's biggest problem is the Gen 3 synth, and this is what perplexes me for a scientific community that does not like inefficiency. The Gen 3 synths you find with higher thinking are mostly designated to menial tasks and basically slave labor, something that could be achieved much better and more efficiently with the robotic synths. It's essentially giving someone a very advanced brain just to have him solve 2 plus 2 the entire life. So it's like having a very advanced computer just to run Notepad or WordPad. It makes no use of the capacity of the Gen 3 synths and their human type thinking. Yes, you have one of them that is used for a personal synth. I think her name is Eve and whatnot. But overall, Gen 3 synths are viewed as slave labor. And this is the most inefficient process that they have right now because it achieves nothing. It achieves absolutely nothing. And on top of that, Gen 3 synths are essentially immortal because they don't grow old or they're unlikely to get diseases because I don't think you actually find a synth ghoul. And due to this scientific potential, notice who joins the Institute. It's Madison Lee. It is not the railroad. It is Madison Lee who has worked to help people out in the Capital Wasteland. That is why she joins the Institute, because the Institute has the knowledge to actually help people in this way. So their biggest problem is the Gen 3 synth program because it is the most inefficient aspect of the Institute right now as it is being used. And if so many Gen 3 synths develop self-determination, then it is definitely not a malfunction. It is an eventuality because the human brain comes to this conclusion all the time. So that is why the biggest problem with the Institute is Gen 3 synths, and without Gen 3 synths, there would be no railroad. Number 10. To add to the benefits of the Institute, Father actually determines that you would be the best leader going against his board of directors. This is because a leader needs to see things beyond science and needs to make decisions by considering factors both scientific and non-scientific. And specifically because the sole survivor has shown leadership skills in the Commonwealth. That is why Father thinks that you are better than anyone, better than Justin Ao, better than the people in the biosciences division, better than anyone. And at least the Institute has actually shown that they have the technical know-how to improve the situation in the Commonwealth. They have an entire division dedicated towards improving upon agriculture. And given time, they might actually create a solution for the FEV virus, as a prototype solution was already developed by Brian Virgil. Number 11. So destroying the Institute would destroy all this data and information, because I don't think you get an option to actually recover this data or to get the blueprints to replicate the facilities. So for a good Commonwealth and for the Commonwealth to prosper in the wasteland, you definitely need this amount of information. People cannot just figure it out eventually. That is not how science works. Because once people have figured it out, people have to build upon it. Because we cannot reinvent the wheel. The Commonwealth has come way past that point. Plus, with lived Commonwealth experience, you are in the best position to actually lead the Institute and properly designate, hypothetically speaking, properly designate all the technologies in the right fashion. Because this scientific miracles cannot be lost. This was also hinted in the Old World Blues DLC, where you had all the technical know-how, but you did not have that outside experience. And that is why so much information and so much technology that could be used to help people, like the clone plants program that actually gives you salient green, it remained isolated from the Mojave Wasteland. Number 12. So my final conclusion would be, as director, hypothetically, you can do away with the Gen 3 synth program because it achieves nothing. And it has shown to achieve nothing and be more a liability than an asset. And you can also do away with the SRB. And with all those resources, perhaps create a new division such as the Wasteland Revival Division. Number 13. But the Minutemen need to stay alive. This is because the Institute has lived isolated from the rest of the Commonwealth for a very long time. So they don't have the technical know-how for peacekeeping and stability. And you need that stability in a Commonwealth, because the more stable the Commonwealth is, the less obstacles they will face towards a true revival. And number 14, finally, I would bring back Brian Virgil and have him continue his work on the FEV and on other such diseases such as the cancer that killed Father, and perhaps even reversing the ghoul condition. So that was my thoughts on Oxhorn's idea on why the Minutemen are the Commonwealth's best hope. And I feel that the best hope of the Commonwealth is the Institute with the Minutemen doing the peacekeeping and stability work. Anyways, please do let me know what you thought in the comment section below if you have a different opinion, and let's have a healthy discussion in the comment section. This is your boy Tanveer Said, the Bengal Dragon, signing out.